Good afternoon, Gareth. How are you today?
I'm good, Paul. Yourself?
Very well, very well. And how's sunny Chester today?
Not so sunny today, looking quite overcast and miserable, but no doubt the sun will be back out soon.
Right. I know when we always talk in the past, we always sort of compare what the weather's doing, because you're sort of quite northern and I'm in the south. And we obviously have met many, many months ago through LinkedIn, actually, wasn't it? And we done some training, and you are one of the members, or I would say the founding members of B2B Energy Network. So really great to have you here today.
Yeah, and being part of a network and the work we've done together, Paul's been really foundational for me as well in terms of my journey into the energy world.
Brilliant. Well, from that conversation already, I know a lot about yourself, but for the benefit of our audience today, can you give us some background story and tell us about your origin story? What's brought you into this energy industry?
Yeah, so my background is as an accountant. So I actually started my career post university at Sky, the TV company. I was lucky enough to get onto their finance grad scheme, spent a number of years moving around their business. Fantastic experience, actually. Worked in 6 or 7 different departments of a really successful, nice place to work as well. Good business. Um, and eventually decided that maybe didn't want to spend my life in London. My partner at the time, or girlfriend, was living back up north, so I moved back up to Chester, where I'm from, um, and joined it was quite a small telecoms engineering business where I sort of went in as a sort of, I guess, ultimately the main finance person, which was a bit of a change in gears, and actually very very quickly realised how much I enjoyed being probably a slightly bigger cog in a slightly smaller machine.
Hmm.
Um, Things went really well, and I was lucky enough at quite a young age to become finance director of that business. And we then took that business on a bit of a journey. We grew it. We became a big supplier of services around 5G, and we ended up selling that business to a big French multinational in 2020. So that was a really, really amazing journey for me. Really, very lucky to get so much exposure at quite a young age. I became a finance director in my 20s, which had its challenges, but which was it was overall very very good. And took that on a really amazing journey, which look back on now very very fondly for lots of reasons, some great experiences. I
And
then
and you actually had your hands on the third largest expense, didn't you? You had
absolutely.
visibility of that.
100%. So it was an engineering business which didn't have huge energy costs, or um, and I didn't give it as much focus as I would have done now.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and of course, energy prices were much lower in that period, which is fortunate. But absolutely, I was responsible for all the utilities and of course in an engineering business, the biggest actual energy is actually the fuel in the vans,
right.
which was a big focus and something which I'll probably come and talk about in my experience of the energy world. Because I think how um, companies with lots of drivers and vans deal with deal with that in terms of the tracking devices and understanding basically exactly what's going on in that van any
Yeah,
moment in time, cameras and stuff. There's actually quite a lot of crossover into other industries where I think energy management could learn from,
yeah.
which is quite interesting. And actually, my interest at ultimately energy started just after that. So I after we sold the business, I did some extra time and then took some time out and did an MBA at Manchester Business School. Um, and that whole course had quite a lot of focus around sustainability. And myself and now my current business partner, we met on that course and we both could see both the importance of focus on sustainability, but across all aspects of life, but also the business opportunity that surrounded it as well. And
Hmm.
that was really where the first seeds of the business we now have started. That then, before that, I actually worked for another sort of telecoms infrastructure business in the northwest. Did about a year and a half there, and actually started to realise that I really quite fancied a bit of a change in direction. Not so much the finance side of it, that's fine, but in terms of working for sort of in a relatively corporate culture, and the sort of requirements that brings, and some of the boundaries as well, just meant that it was sort of it felt like a good time to try something a little bit different. Um, So that's really where what led us to starting our business as Zeronify, um, just over about 18 months ago, just over a year ago. Um, and to be honest with you, we knew we wanted to do something in the sustainability space. We didn't quite know what. We both had we had some experience of installing solar and EV charge points from both of our sort of backgrounds in engineering.
Hmm.
My business partner Gary's from an engineering background as well, but more operational. And we started playing around with ideas about what we could do. We didn't really want to be a solar installer or an EV installer. We felt that our skill sets and in what was a very competitive industry didn't really work. Um, and we just kept coming back to the fact that actually, from a business point of view, if you could reduce your energy usage, you were that was fundamental to both becoming more sustainable, but also reducing the costs of other things that you might then do to become sustainable, like solar panels. Because if you're using less energy, you might end up putting less solar panels on your roof,
Yeah,
depending on the
yeah.
commercials and the dynamics. So, but I mean, Paul, that's sort of the journey, if you like, in a couple of minutes or a few minutes.
And tell us about Seronify now. How long you been trading now?
Just over a year.
Right.
Um, so we're energy consultancy focused on helping businesses understand, manage, and reduce ultimately their energy use and costs, and of course their carbon emissions as well. We took a decision early in the business to license a monitoring technology, which is sort of really been fundamental to a lot of the work we've done to date. So we typically, our current client base are a mixture of manufacturers, hospitality businesses, leisure businesses as well, and we do a mixture of different types of activity, but principally we are installing a monitoring solution, gathering lots of data, which I think, going back to I'll come on to probably more, but my finance background really
Yeah,
pushes me in that direction in terms of being very, very data led and understanding the value of data. And we typically using monitoring energy use at an asset level, but also combining that with other data sources. So we collect environmental data, heat, light, humidity, occupancy, um, and then on top of that, we will bring in the customer's own data. So we're working with a small pub restaurant chain at the moment. We're doing a trial on the first site, but we are bringing in the sales data from the site alongside the energy data to give ourselves more context around what we'd expect to see in energy, so we can normalize better and understand what really should be happening at any point in time.
yeah,
And one of the things that's been very evident to me as we've met businesses and we've started to develop relationships, is that it is that lack of data usually which is holding businesses back from being more proactive in reducing their
yeah.
energy costs.
And what the lack of the fact that they don't correlate that back to the energy, is that what you're saying?
I think it starts with not quite knowing where to start in terms of they have
Right.
their high level data in it, and
Yeah, yeah,
but what does that mean? Where is it coming from?
yeah,
Most people not most people, lots of people have half hourly data now. They
yeah.
almost, from my experience, very rarely actually use it.
Yeah, well,
Very
they don't
often,
know. It's just
yeah,
data, isn't it? Just
yeah.
numbers on a sheet, basically. Yeah,
Absolutely. Um, and then, but then they're also not, and therefore because they're not able to sort of quantify it down at a sort of level they understand, i.e., a fridge or a cooker or a air conditioning unit,
mm,
how much energy is actually being used in pound, shilling, and pence. It then becomes it's very theoretical, and but it takes away a lot of the drive, I think, and
yeah,
clarity to be able to go and make changes and decisions. It sort of just sits there in the background as a sort of um, well, a necessary evil, despite the fact, you rightly say, Paul, it's their third biggest cost.
yeah. I'm interested to see how you've done that transition. So one minute you're doing all the accounting, you're working on, dare we say, a different side of the fence. You've now gone to university, you've got the MBA, you've set this new business up. You're now peering over that fence, aren't you, to work with these other do you engage with the finance directors of these organizations? Is that where your key engagement point is because of your background, basically?
It can be. I mean, our routes into customers vary, but
Yeah.
finance manager is absolutely a valid one, and often someone who per my background, are able to sort of connect with quite well.
Yeah.
Um, I think you've got, I guess, another challenge of energy management. You have a mix of operational and financial focus, which needs to be sort of a bridge to be able to be able to put solutions into place. Obviously, operationally, people want to deliver what they're there to deliver, um, and the finance guy, of course, is there to support that and keep the purse strings. So the finance person is a very good person to go to, but never on their own. It's always part of a ecosystem with the operational team as well.
Yeah. And how are you finding these organisations? Well, I know you talk about, we've done a lot of work. When we've done the training, we talked about the likes of LinkedIn. You had people working on here. How are we finding these organisations? Are you focusing locally regarding that as well?
So we're taking a bit of a mixed strategy. We engage in quite a lot of local networking and sort of events. So I'm a member of BNI, a member of the local Chamber of Commerce as well, and we aim every week to get out to at least one event if we can between the team, if
Yeah.
not more,
Yeah.
across the northwest. Um, the I think the challenge of and through that route, often we are speaking to lots of medium or smaller businesses quite regularly, and we sort of they're not always a good candidate for an energy monitoring technology, which
Yeah.
has a certain cost level to it. But there is often a conversation around energy audits, ongoing energy management support, that type of thing, which we are developing actually as a business. Um, and then we also at the same time have work through LinkedIn, email, um, to try and cast our net a bit wider effectively. We have clients across the UK pretty much now, um, and we find that where I guess where we cast the net a bit wider, we're really looking for those more energy intense, bigger businesses where the projects will be bigger because it doesn't make much sense for us to travel to Bournemouth, for instance, to
No,
to
no.
do an energy audit when there's well, I know for a fact there's an energy expert there already who could do that at a much better price, effectively.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you find these organisations, what's the starting point and what you finding their challenges are?
So the first point is to understand their position. Obviously, they're I mean, the challenges for most people are that they've seen their energy prices go up significantly over the last 5 years, and that's
Yeah.
maybe we've come off the spike, but that's still a big factor. Um, there's a lot of uncertainty around, given the sort of geopolitics and what's going on in the Middle East and the rest of the world,
Yeah.
where things will go. And there's also generally speaking, a lack of understanding in um, what the UK energy market is sort of doing and where it's going to go as well. So for instance, obviously everyone understands and it's publicly sort of shared regularly that there's a lot of rollout of renewables and things like that, but people aren't necessarily thinking about the increase in demand from EVs and things like that, which is actually putting huge strain on the grid and meaning that as we know, the big elements of the electricity bill are actually going to increase, not
Yeah.
decrease from a non-commodity point of view. So I think the first thing is to try and understand what people's position is today, what they understand, and and how I always ask the question, what would you do if energy prices go up 25% next year? How big an impact is that on your business? And for some people, it's minimal, and for others, particularly hospitality, springs to mind. That can be a really big
Yeah.
thing alongside other things that are going on. So we try and understand their starting position, um, and then we try and understand through some basic analysis that we'll do of their site, completely free desktop analysis, what their potential opportunity of energy savings are. So effectively, how energy efficient they are based on some of the typical benchmarks that are out there.
Um, you mentioned about obviously about the energy crisis and the drive because their energy's gone up. Are we seeing organisations now saying, net zero, they want to be more greener, or is it still the cost
So
driver?
I think if I'm honest, for most businesses, I think the bottom financially. That's the bottom
Bottom
line
line, yeah, yeah,
is what's driving most people's thinking.
yeah,
I think actually one of the things I've noticed, I don't know if you would see anything similar, Paul, over the last 3 or 4 months particularly, and I think this has got a lot to do with what's happening in America and some of the politics in America, is that there is a much people are much more comfortable saying we're not actually that bothered about sustainability or net zero particularly, which is a an interesting thing to say. What really all that matters to us is the financial side of it. Um, and I've met quite a few. I met, I guess, particularly financial people who they just don't. They're very open. They're not actually that interested
yeah, yeah,
in the short term. And we'll have a conversation. I challenge them on it a little bit, but and we move forward from there. But it's it's almost always comes down to the financial element, I think. But
yeah. I I haven't seen it per se. Um, However, it's something I sort of speak with organisations about because 2050 is a long way away, isn't it? Well, we say it's a long way away, but we know time is short, life's long, life is short, and before we know it, 2050 could be here. But there's no point us knee jerking into a situation where I've got to get rid of all my gas or I've got to reduce my consumption and then I've got to start driving offsets. I think we have got the time. The immediate issue is cost, isn't it? I've seen some ridiculous rates through my time over the last couple of months. And I've even seen, believe it or not, I actually see 8p today on a day rate.
wow,
And I said to the guy, you've got a shock coming. I don't know how you've got that rate or someone's forgotten about you. But we're looking circa 29p now. So that is a big issue coming your way. And that's going to make a massive impact because it's going to like a 3 times his cost going to go up. And that's going to make a big impact to his bottom line. So they're the things that are going to be hitting people. And then on the other hand, I've seen people coming off £1.15, per unit, which is crazy prices. But ultimately, it's always got to be the cost thing and driving down that cost. And as we always say, it's the third largest cost expense. So there's your target, isn't it? Always.
absolutely, yeah.
I don't know if you
Um,
see my post today. I put a post up today, and I'm a great believer of this. Is because none of these organisations, neither, and I don't know about yourself, they haven't got no budget for this. We're having to speak to these people, and you know, we're knocking on their doors, they're knocking on ours, and we're having to talk to them about you need to be doing energy management, and they go, well, why do I need to do that? You know, I can see I can reduce my costs, but we're the experts to drive that down. They haven't got a budget. But I feel that we could do this all without a budget. We don't need a budget because there's ways around delivering good energy management.
Absolutely, and like in most cases, there's so much opportunity there that it's incredibly financially beneficial to take action.
Yeah,
And the the scenario which comes up, it comes up a lot for us and is very frustrating, is where we get the customer to understand that there is opportunity,
yeah,
and then they decide, well, we'll do that ourselves. We'll fix that ourselves. And they, yeah, great if they're able to do that, fantastic. But we've just identified probably a big 20% energy inefficiency, which has probably been in that business for 15 years. What's going
yeah,
to change now?
yeah.
Um, and for a fraction of that saving, we could help them do that. And
Mm.
it's I understand, of course, but it's frustrating because I suspect when I revisit those people in 12, 24 months' time, nothing really will have changed.
No, that widget is still doing the time, still running 24 hours a day. Someone's still got something in hand. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and the sort of medium-sized businesses who may be using quite a lot of energy, but they're not big enough to have an energy manager on site. It
Mm.
shouldn't be a surprise because they haven't got anyone who's actually actively got time to do it. And that's where we we like to position ourselves as that that sort of additional parts of our business who very connected into what their to their goals to
Yeah.
help them solve that problem.
Now, one of the biggest drivers I see is legislation, but that legislation is only hitting the bigger organisations. What's your thoughts? Are you likely to evolve your business and try and get the training into legislation? Is that on your agenda?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's clear opportunity in the in the ESOS space, for instance,
Yeah,
in being out. There's another another 4 years now of ESOS, another
that's
phase
right. Yeah,
of ESOS guaranteed. So there is clear opportunity there because every company
yeah,
above above the threshold are going to have to do it, or So absolutely, it's something we're looking at actually quite closely at the moment. Is in terms of can we can we become more involved in that side of things? We don't have any ESOS assessors in our business today. Um, it's also it's also going to be interesting over the next few years to watch closely where the legislation goes as well.
mm,
Um, I think undoubtedly, it already. I think there already are some small changes already booked in effectively into the next few years, and but changes in the climate change levy, for instance, I think kick in next year, so that will become more expensive.
yeah,
Um, but I think, as you said, Paul, 2050 is a long way off, and are going to need a bit of a push in the right direction. Whilst understanding it can't negatively impact the bottom line.
yeah,
So legislation plays a really key part. So I mean, absolutely, we plan to stay close to legislation and stand, and make sure that that we push in the same direction as where the legislation's going, because that is probably the critical driver to most people.
yeah. And I think for me, when I look at legislation, it it's good for the major energy users, the big organisations. So legislation isn't impacted by the amount of energy; it's about the how many people and their turnover. Now those levels need to come down because it's hitting the major energy users or the major companies. It's not hitting the SMEs of this world. This legislation needs to drop drastically into the SME world. However, the SME world needs our support. I know you're doing work in your local area for SMEs, but if you look at them compared to a big organisation, they're miles behind.
Absolutely, just taking that point on another step, Paul. I think particularly with some of the SME manufacturing businesses we see and we work with, they are they are competing globally ultimately. Whether they, I mean, we work with a company who provides automotive parts in the UK, but of course the cars that are being made in the UK are being sold around the world.
Yeah,
This is a global challenge, and we have the highest, pretty much the highest energy rates in the industrialized world. So actually, there's a really important piece of work to do here. The UK needs to be more energy efficient, especially in the next few years, because of
yeah,
how high our energy prices are. And if we can't do that, we won't be able to compete. And you know that's something I think the UK really needs at the moment.
yeah. So obviously we've got legislation on your radar. What other things, if we look to the future, what other things have we got? What are we focusing on?
So technology is a big thing, and data. So we are constantly evolving and looking at ways of gathering more data to be able to help us make better decisions or help customers make better decisions. So we we are constantly refining, on a typical manufacturing site or a typical hospitality site, what the project looks like and what
Hmm.
we're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
And what we're finding is that where we can project in a manufacturing world where we can pull production data into our system, so looking at alongside energy data, um, as well as the environmental factors that we sort of mentioned before, you're starting to be able to build a really powerful picture of what is happening inside that building. Um, and one of the big things that we've now started to be able to do is, because with our energy monitoring, we find out of hours waste. That's pretty straightforward.
yeah,
We look at machines and are they operating efficiently, be it an air conditioning unit or a big refrigeration unit or
hmm,
a resin dispenser in the plastics factory. We sort of look at it from almost an M&E point of view with the energy use. But what we're now starting to do with the production data is look at the utilization of those machines as well. So, if that machine is running for 5 hours a day, is it, in a production plant, is it being is it being 100% utilized for those 5 hours, or is it actually being 70% utilized for 5 hours? And maybe we could run it for 4 hours instead at the
Yeah.
same cost.
Yeah.
So, and that's really interesting and really powerful because we're starting to see now. Obviously, this has to fit around the customer's needs and their standard operating procedure already, but we're starting to see quite big opportunities to reduce energy use on their biggest users by 10-15% with no impact whatsoever on production. Actually, it's making them more efficient because suddenly they're squeezing more out of less time. So about data, I mean, that's just an example, but with the data,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's all about bringing data from different sources and using it as well as we can.
And then obviously technology. You're quite agnostic regarding technology because I know we've looked at some CHP projects
Yeah.
local to yourself. And then what I also liked about what you was doing there is seeking all the grant funding that was available for that organisation as well.
Yeah. So the project you're referring to, Paul, a swimming centre, which is still ongoing, and we're about, hopefully about to get the grant funding in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Is
You
again,
did
it's a
say
really
that a
good
couple of
platform.
weeks ago, Gareth.
Yeah, I know. Well, you tell me about it. These
These
public
things,
sector
as you
grant
know, what
grants
it's
take lots of
sometimes it's
work.
like pulling teeth, isn't it? These
Yeah,
the grants and the process.
yeah.
I,
But we
I
have
can
had
remember back some of the conversations we've had. I said, "Oh, I'm going to land this. It's going to happen. It's going to happen." And then, yeah, it does eventually happen.
we
Sorry.
we have had a bit of progress. So I am now more confident in the next couple of weeks that we will
Right. Good.
see where we're at. But actually, the technology which is available now in terms of the hardware, so in this case the heat pumps,
Yeah.
which are getting more and more efficient and easier to install and easier to fit into the plant room, alongside that's the sort of software side of it. So the building management system. So in that case, we're looking at installing Niagara. Create some really, really interesting opportunities because
Mm.
a heat pump alone is a great piece of kit, but of course, it's very inefficient in cold weather. Um, the boilers are sort of okay, but they do a job, but they're very carbon intensive. But what we're able to do with by using a system like Niagara to pull it all together is effectively operate on the best piece of equipment at that point in time.
Yeah.
So in a swimming pool instance, we'll be using heat pumps and we'll have solar on the roof as well for probably 80% of the year. But for the bits of time when temperature goes low and there's no solar coming off the roof, we're going to flip straight on back to the boiler, which means that we miss those periods where, especially with the cost of electricity, the
Mm.
heat pump's operating a very low coefficient performance, and suddenly their rates, the cost goes through the roof,
Yeah.
and the savings from not having that little tail of inefficient use on the heat pump are really, really quite significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that particular project you was looking at CHP. You didn't just say, right, this is the one technology. You took a very wide scope view of it and all the different technologies that are out there. I think you must have laid them all out on the table and selected the
Absolutely.
best possible opportunity for the client.
Absolutely, and CHP is still very much on the table. It's just a case of one step at a time, and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have a priority list.
yeah,
In fact, once the heat pump is in, the CHP unit will become much more important because of the extra electricity we're going to be using.
yeah,
So, I think one of the things that's been a really important part of my learning within the sector, and I'm still relatively new within it, and obviously a lot of our conversations, Paul, have been really important towards this learning, is just getting a good grasp of the technology options that are out there. Not
yeah,
not becoming an expert in them, but having because there's experts for each one of these already, but having a good grasp, understanding where they can work, what their limitations are, the key success factors to each one, so that you can at least have that level of conversation with a customer,
mm,
and also get it into your thinking. Because there's so many great things out there. There's so many great retrofit energy efficiency products out there. There's so much in terms of the in generation technology. It's
yeah,
getting better and better every day from the panels, through to CHP units, etc. And through to and then EV charging units, all these types of things, which again are becoming the smart loading elements. But there is so much going on in terms of the technical innovation within the energy sector that it's really, really important for our customers that we're able to harness that to some extent so that we can bring in the right people at the right times to
yeah.
make it work.
Interestingly, there's something that's going in my head at the moment. when we first met, we started the journey, the 4 principles and the 11 week. You was very quiet. You listened a lot, and I'm now listening to you now, and you have so much passion coming out of from you. You're a different person from the early days of the learning. I think it does get you, doesn't it? Energy and sustainability. It gets you the passion.
Oh,
It gets everyone. I
absolutely,
feel.
absolutely, Paul. I think if I'm honest, I've spent, I'm 40 years old. I spent 38 and a half of those years not really thinking too much about energy. My dad actually worked in electrical industry, looking after overhead lines as an engineer.
Right. Oh, really?
Um,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, but I never really thought too much about it. And it's only the last 18 months I've really started to understand in the context of both the economic context, but also obviously the environmental and sustainability context, how incredibly important energy provision really is, and how fundamental it's going to be to the next 20 years, 50 years of not
Yeah.
just this country but this planet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been a really interesting journey watching the journey of your organization and you as an individual. And I'm just wondering now, and as we come to this point of the interview, is there anything you can give back to the industry from what you've learned and your transition into this industry?
Yes. So I think my journey's still in its infancy, and
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got a lot left to learn. But possibly two things. One, it from a my background from as an accountant and a finance person is very quantitative. Um, One of the things that's become has been very obvious to me when I speak to clients is that the thing that stops them doing things is a lack of certainty, and that lack of certainty comes from
yeah,
a
yeah,
lack of hard and fast numbers.
yeah,
And the other thing is people are stupid, so those numbers need to be right or close to, or as close to being right as possible.
mm-hmm,
So I would recommend anyone working in the industry trying to offer services which help people improve energy efficiency, energy use, or products around that
yeah,
are able to very clearly demonstrate in numbers what the impact's going to be. And that's financial, that's carbon, it's energy use, it's all those things. But it's so important. And as a person who was sat on the other side of the desk, I can tell you now, if someone shows me the wrong numbers or numbers that I think are inflated, the chances of us moving forward are quite slim.
yeah, yeah,
You've got from a credibility point of view, it's so important.
yeah,
So yes, that's probably the major thing, and then just the other thing, which I guess has been important part of my last sort of 18 months of learning, is as we've already said, people have got to stay. You've got to keep learning. You've got to keep
yeah,
moving forward. You've got to keep understanding because the landscape's changing so quickly, and we all lots of people in the industry doing slightly different things in different ways, but um, being on top of the changes that are coming, and you mentioned legislation, which is a massive part of that as well.
mm.
It's so important because that's what's going to shape what customers need and require and are able to have in the future.
What's your next step regarding your learning?
Well, I'm now part of the B2B Energy ongoing learning, so that's very much part of it. I'm always trying to look for seminars and opportunities and events to go
Yeah,
to. I think obviously some of these things tie into business needs at a point in time,
yeah, of course.
and we have a couple of clients at the moment where we have particularly big sort of M&E type requirements in terms of kit, which probably isn't working very well, and we need to work out we do it. So that of course becomes a factor as well. But it's
Yeah,
every aspect for it. It's trying to make sure you make time for it every week.
yeah,
But it's also going looking for it and finding the information and then validating it as well.
yeah. I think your story is amazing, Gareth, and you've done a really great job. And it's great to see a bean counter turn into an energy consultant. For me, that's made my day because when I worked in the corporate world, we had loads of bean counters sitting there telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing regarding the money and the cost. And 1 minute we're allowed to drive diesel cars, and then we got to drive petrol, and we've got to do this journey and that journey. But now you've come a full circle into energy management. I think it's amazing, and you speak with authority regarding the numbers, which is great, and you're getting that energy management skill, which is really good. So well done to you.
No, thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. I think particularly as a young finance executive, both my biggest strength and weakness was that I was very, very open to listening to, my operating teams, the operational management within engineering business I was in, and really trying to make work what they wanted. Whereas I think a lot of finance professionals are much, much more closed off than that. Everything's black and white, and they keep a narrow focus. Now, as I say, it's a strength and a weakness because it can lead you. My job is ultimately to be that guard against
Yeah.
financial mistakes, and at times I probably was not soft, but probably didn't drive that line as much as I could do, which was a learning as a young finance professional. But I think I've always understood that the bean counting is a means to an end, right? It's there to support the rest of it. I
Yeah,
think
of
the
course.
interesting thing about the energy world, energy consultancy and management world, is that there is more of that bean counting needed to help customers really get to where they could get to and understand their current position.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dichotomy of the two situations, really.
Brilliant. Well, I'd like to say thank you very much for one, coming on our course and learning about energy management, two, joining our network, which I think is very valuable to everyone. Your skills as a, from where you've come from, and the skills you're picking up and the dynamics you bring to the group. So I'd like to thank you for that. And please, lastly, you and your family stay safe in these times.
And yours, Paul. Thank you very much.